I am a GP. I've also got a degree in nutrition. I think the most other important thing I can say is I'm one of the doctors that works for Plant-Based Health Online. It's an online service for people who want to consult with healthcare professionals who follow a plant-based diet themselves. You don't have to be plant-based to have a consultation. Do check in. And the other thing I really need you to know is I have no conflict of interest. Okay, what I'm about to tell you about is my own conclusion from my own search of the medical literature. It's not an opinion that's being bribed or paid for in any way by any drug company or any interested party. That this is my opinion, okay, and the opinion of many other people and increasing numbers of people. So on the menu, we're going to look at why weight is a problem, why diets don't work, and then I'd like to tell you about the evidence for why plant-based diets are so effective for regulating your weight. And I'd like to tell you about the Happy Shape Club, which is an online weight loss course that I run. Again, not trying to sell it to you, not trying to get you to sign up or anything, although of course you're very welcome to, but I just want to show you evidence of how it works in real life, and it's lovely. So what's the problem? Why am I worrying about diets and weight anyway? Well, the most worrying form of being overweight, which is obesity, has got a lot of health problems associated with it, and the amount of people with obesity in the world has trebled in the last 35 years. Now we don't see that very often with any other health problems. So if you look at high blood pressure or diabetes or even lung cancer, when people started smoking a lot, we didn't see things increasing that quickly. So it really is quite dramatic in the medical world, and it's associated with a lot of health problems. One caveat, there are people out there who are overweight or are living with obesity, and they are perfectly happy at the weight that they're at, and they have no ill effects, and they would be very offended by the fact that I would suggest that they might want to lose weight. This talk is not for them, okay? I completely appreciate that you can be above what people would consider to be a healthy weight and be perfectly happy and not want to do anything about it. This is for people who do want to do something about it. Okay, so thinking about the causes of obesity, it's complicated, okay. About 10-15 years ago now, some of the top minds in obesity were brought together to try and write a scientific paper about what the causes were. And if you've got my slides, you can see the foresight map. For those of you who are not looking at my slides, it looks like a plate of spaghetti. Okay, it's supposed to be a diagram of how everything interconnects with each other, how diet and exercise interconnect, and how society connects and the food industry, and it's all just a mess because it's also complicated. So what I want to say at this point is that if you are living with more weight than you want to be, or you know someone who is, it's probably not their fault. Okay, and the reasons why we've gained so much weight over the last 20-30 years are very, very complicated, and most of them are nothing to do with our own behaviour, because it is about behaviour, but our behaviour is modified in ways that are just so complicated. What you ultimately choose to put in your mouth or how much exercise you choose to do feels like a personal decision, and in many ways it is, but in so many other ways it just isn't. It's being made for you at so many other societal and subconscious levels, so it can be quite difficult. So moving on, diets don't work, okay? Losing weight is relatively straightforward. Go and find any of the commercially available diets out there, they all work. That's not the problem, it's keeping the weight off is the trick, okay? And there are good reasons why that's difficult. When we were hunter-gatherers, we didn't necessarily know where our next meal was coming from, and so people who naturally wanted to eat lots and lots of food whenever they could had plenty of fat stores, and that got them through the food scarcity times. And so now those of us who have survived into modern civilization have the genes and the physiology and the everything else that make us hang on to our weight, because 70,000 years ago that was a good thing. In our modern day society, that's not such a good thing. So let's just think about why that is. That there are 5 basic things. I'm looking at my slides now, some big words, but I watched a few of these talks over the last few days, and I gather you guys are used to big words, so that's fine. So the first one's adipose cellularity, which means fat cells. So if you try to lose weight, what you're trying to do hopefully is lose fat, which means removing fat from your fat cells. That's where the fat is stored. Your fat cells don't like that very much. So as you start to lose weight, they start getting grumpy and they start sending messages to your brain saying, no, 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 we need fat in us. We're fat cells. Please send fat. And your brain will act on that to make that happen. Secondly, similar thing, your hormones will change. If you start to lose weight, your appetite is regulated by hormones, among many other things, and those hormones will start changing so that the things that make you feel full work less, and the things that make you feel hungry really kick into high gear to try and make you overeat. Then there's energy metabolism. I'm sure you know this from lots of other socially available, commercially available talks and adverts. If you go on a diet, your metabolic rate slows. That's fairly true because your body's trying to conserve energy. It doesn't know that you're living in the 21st century with abundant food everywhere. It still thinks you're a hunter-gatherer. It's trying to hang on to your food and your fat. And then neural responses, that's all about how your brain kicks in. So when your stomach sends signals to your brain saying, I'm hungry, get this person to eat, please, that's a lot stronger than it would be if you weren't trying to lose weight. And then lastly, addiction. We have two regulatory systems that help with our appetite and the things that control how much food we eat. And one is the homeostatic system, which is the thing that regulates most things that we do unconsciously, like keep on with our blood pressure and keeps our heart rate steady, that kind of thing. Also regulates our food intake, and left alone, it will get to within 10 calories of what you need every day. That's 2 cornflakes. Within that much every day. Okay, but you can override it with the pleasure system. Anything in life that gives us pleasure, which includes food, gambling, drugs, whatever, sport, exercise, anything that gives us deep pleasure, works on our pleasure system in our brain somewhere. And if you go on a diet, what happens? Have you ever noticed, I don't know if you've been on a diet, but you'll notice that your favourite foods that you're now depriving yourself of, they just look so good now. That's because the pleasure system has kicked into high gear to try and get you to eat these things because it needs you to gain weight again. Okay, so that's why diets don't work. I think the statistics are between 90 and 95% of people who go on a diet and then come off a diet regain all of their weight and more. So the trick is not to go on a diet in the first place. The trick is to find sustainable long-term changes that you can just stick to and love. And then that's not a diet, that's a lifestyle. Okay, so let's look at the plants and weight, the evidence. That's my next slide, if you're following my slides. So when we're looking at things as doctors and we're trying to spot trends and things that might be relevant to scientific practice, one of the first things to do is look at populations, look at different people and see what they do and see what health outcomes they have. So that's called epidemiology. And that's just looking at populations, looking at people. So some lovely people a few years ago, 2014, looked at the Seventh-day Adventists in America. Now, there's a good reason for that. When we look at any health study, it's really difficult to know. Say, for example, we could say people eat lots of raspberries, lose weight. Okay, I've just plucked that from nowhere. Raspberries are one of my favourite fruits, so it's just on my mind. But we don't know. Is it because they eat the raspberries? Is it because people who eat raspberries also eat something else? Is it because they tend to exercise more? Do they smoke less? Are they of a higher social class, so they've got more money spent on healthy food? You know, it's complicated. Seventh-day Adventists, they have a lot in common as a group. They all believe in healthy diets, but they have different views on diets. Some of them eat meat, some of them eat vegetarian, some of them are vegan. They all exercise regularly as a group. They've got strong social connections through their religious faith. You know, there's lots and lots of things that make them more similar than other populations. So I didn't. Sorry, I was about to say we did. The nutrition community did some studies looking at these people, and sure enough, those that follow a vegan diet tend to weigh less. In those studies, the people following a vegan diet were the only ones who had a healthy body weight. Bear in mind, this is America, where obesity is a bigger problem than it is in lots of other places. But on average, the people who followed an omnivore diet had a body mass index of 29, which is almost obese. The vegetarians on average had a body mass index of 25, which is just overweight. And the vegans had a body mass index of 23, which is healthy. So that was one study. There are lots like it. I'm just trying to pull out one or two examples here because time is short and lots to say. The next thing to do in science, if you've identified that there's a possible trend in something, so you've identified that when you just look at vegans and look at vegetarians and look at meat-eating people, you seem to notice that the vegans weigh less. The next thing to do is take people who don't eat a vegan diet, put them on a vegan diet and see what happens to their weight. So thankfully there have been about 20 trials of this now, and decent trials where they've scrutinised the evidence very carefully and they've set them up properly and tried to, within the limitations of what I was saying about it's so complicated, they've tried to control for as much of that as they possibly can, as much as you ever can. And what they found pretty much consistently is if you change from a meat-eating diet or even a vegetarian diet to a vegan diet, you're highly likely to lose weight. If you certainly put a group of 20, 30, 100 people on that dietary change as a group, they will lose weight. It may vary from person to person, but generally speaking, they will lose weight. So that's really good news to me, because that's how I want to live my life and how I want to teach other people to live their life. So knowing that the evidence consistently backs me up is a good thing. When you look at lots of evidence, it tends to be quite mixed. You'll see people say, oh, the evidence was mixed. There were 10 trials that showed this and then there were 4 trials that showed the opposite. When it comes to vegan diets and weight, they're all consistent. They all show that you lose weight.